and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to teach you how to make the perfect pie crust. It's a recipe that's actually named the perfect pie crust, and it's one I've been using for many years, and I always have great success with it. So the first thing we need to do is learn how to properly measure our ingredients. Remember in class we talked about the difference between liquid and dry measuring cups. Using flour, we will be using a dry measuring cup. I don't want you taking your measuring cup and swooping up the flour or the dry ingredients. I want you to be using a scoop or a spoon, and you simply take your dry measuring cup, scoop it in, and you want to make sure that you're scooping it in and overflowing it, and then you want to just tap gently once, and then you want to level it off. So here we have the perfectly measured cup of flour. Now it's time to get cooking. As we discussed in class, you always want to read your recipe 3 times. The first time you're going to read it to see, do you have all the ingredients? Do you really want to make it? The second time you're going to read it, you're going to go through and you're going to look at the ingredient list, and then we're going to do what we call mise en place. Remembering that mise en place means everything in its place and anything that you need to do ahead of time to execute the recipe smoothly. So an example, do you need to preheat your oven? Are there any special equipments that you're going to use? So today we're going to use a food processor. Is there any temperatures that you have to talk about? They talk about ice cold water and they talk about chilled butter. So looking at this recipe, I'm going to say 2.5 cups of flour, and I measure that out using the proper method with the dry measuring cup and leveling it off. The next one is going to be 1 cup or 2 sticks of unsalted butter, and it's going to be chilled. I actually use frozen butter because I feel that gives you the most results, and I cut it into about 1/2-inch pieces right there. The next one is our teaspoon of salt. And for this, actually, we're using table salt. We're not using kosher salt at this point, but for our pie crust, we're just going to use regular old table salt. And then we have 1 teaspoon of sugar. And then we have our ice water. So it tells you 6 to 8 tablespoons of ice water. I'm using a liquid measuring cup because we discussed if we're using liquids, we're always going to use a liquid measuring cup. And I put in 1 full cup. It calls for 6 to 8 tablespoons, and we know that 1 cup is 8 tablespoons. But for accurate measurement, as I'm putting it in, and also we're going to use this tablespoon because it gives you a little bit more control of the amount of liquid that you're putting in. So we mise en place everything. So we have our butter, our flour, our salt, our sugar, and our ice cold water. So now it's time to begin. Okay, now that we have everything mise en place, we're measured out, we're going to get started. So when we're reading our recipe, it's telling us that we want to mix our flour, our salt, and our sugar into our food processor. So when you're using the food processor for a pie crust, you want to use the metal blade. You put it in like this. And the good thing about a food processor is it won't work if it's not properly attached, and that's for safety reasons. And trust me, you're going to appreciate that because these blades can be very sharp. So put your blade in there, make sure it's secure, and then we're going to push our flour in here, and we're going to put our sugar and our salt, and then it tells us that we're going to pulse it 6 to 8 pulses to make sure it's mixed. And we will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. The next one says that it is going to slowly add the butter half at a time, pulsing several times after each addition. So we'll take this off. So you can do it a couple ways. I normally take it and I'll put a couple through my chute here. So I'll take it, put a little bit here, a little bit more than half, put it on there, and just have to always kind of clean your fingers, and we're going to pulse it. Going up and down, okay, take a little bit more. And this is where you don't want to be impatient, you don't want to put too much in at one time because you want to allow it to properly mix with the flour molecules. A little bit more, putting it down. Okay, half at a time. And we're almost done here, guys. Pulsing it, and all my butter is in here. And you will see it, pulsing it. And this way you can just kind of hold it for a little bit at this point, and then you want to check it. So if you look at your recipe, it's going to say Add the rest of the butter and pulse 6 to 8 times until the largest pieces of butter about the size of a large pea. So this is where you're going to want to open it up and be very careful when you're going into the food processor because that blaze is really sharp. And I can look at here and I can see that I need to pulse a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and I got a little chunk of butter that's stuck in there. That's okay. So we were going to pulse it like that until it's that. Okay, so that's ready to go. And then actually at this point it says slowly add the ice water, and we're going to do it 1 tablespoon at a time. Okay, so here I have my water, and this is, I'm going to put it totally on, so my food processor is running. And I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to let it go. And then I'm going to stop it. At this point I stop it and I'm going to look and I'm going to try to mold it with my hand. And looking like this, I can tell you that I don't need any more water at this point. So at this point you want to be very careful, and you want to take it and you're going to take your cutting board, and I always take the blade out because we don't want any accidents with the blade. And you can see how this is nicely folded together. So this is an indication that I put just the amount of water. And then if you need to add a little bit more water, that's fine, but you don't want to add too much or not enough. So at this point, I can take it and I can dump it out on my cutting board, put it all together. You can see, mold it like this. Sorry about this. Mold it like this. And get ready for the next step. The next step is, after we have our big mound, we're going to cut it into 2 different discs. We're going to cut our big mound in half. And what I like to do is I like to spread it a little bit like this. Now you have to be careful. You don't want to manipulate it too much, especially with your hands because of the body heat. But I like to put it into discs, like about this big, because it makes it easier for when you actually are going to be rolling it out. So we have some cling wrap right here. So we're going to take 1 piece and we're going to place it in our cling wrap. We're going to fold it over, and then we're going to fold it over again. Get a little bit more here. Take our other disc. So this actually pie crust recipe makes a top and a bottom. So it makes 1 whole pie. So we're going to make an apple pie today, which is the bottom and the top. If you're making a pumpkin pie for the holidays, you could make this 1 recipe and you would get 2 pies. My second disc like this, put it in and fold it up. And now we're going to put it in the refrigerator for about 1 hour. As it's chilling in there, we're going to get ready and we're going to make our delicious pie filling. So now it's time to mise en place the ingredients for the apple pie filling. We're going to use a variety of different apples. We need about 3 pounds of apples. That's about 6 to 7 medium to large apples. We're using a combination of a Granny Smith, which is a tart apple, and then a McIntosh, which is a fairly sweet apple, kind of a mild flavor. The 2 of them go together and it just gives a really nice flavor. We actually got these apples at a local orchards. We know that apples are in season in the fall. We went apple picking and picked about 51 apples, so thus we're making some apple pie. You can buy your apples by the pound in the grocery store or at the orchard, but I have a little kitchen scale, and I know from experience that about 6 to 7 apples is about the amount I need for my apple pie. Then we have 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. We have 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. We have 1 teaspoon of lemon zest, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and then we have our spices that really, they go together so well and they just give a wonderful flavor. 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of allspice. So now that we have all of our ingredients together it's time to cut the apples.